updates there on investments from China. Now, market regulator SEBI released a note earlier and that highlights a behavior of investors within the IPO market and some very interesting points that the market regulator has highlighted. The primary point being that almost 54% of the IPO shares by value are sold by investors within the first week of listing itself. So a very important point that SEBI is making is this frenzy within the IPO market, but an impatient frenzy of sorts. Now, within this first week of listing, when you break it down to individual categories, you can see the individual investors, it's sold half of their shares by value within the first week. When it comes to HNIs, that number goes up to 53%, and for retail, that number is at around 42%. So by value, all of these shares are sold within the first week of the stock listing on the bourses. Now, when it comes to mutual funds and banks, mutual funds are holding on to the shares slightly longer, and almost only 3.3% of the shares allotted by value are sold by mutual funds within the first week, while banks, that number goes up to 80%. So it's a very vast gulf between the mutual funds and the banks. Now, here's an interesting bit here when it comes to the individual investors. Now, 67% of the shares by value are sold by individual investors within the first week if the gains on that listing is more than 20%. But it's not as if that if there are no gains, there are no shares being sold. That number comes down to 23.3%, but the shares are still sold even if the returns on the IPO price are negative. So even then the shares are sold within the first week of listing. Now, when it comes to the population, the geographic division of the retail investors as to whom the shares get allotted in the IPO, Gujarat ranks on top with almost 39%. Maharashtra is second with around 13.5%, followed by Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. So very interesting points that SEBI has highlighted in this study that they have made. It almost signifies a very impatient investor frenzy within the IPO markets. Well, time for a short break here on Business Lunch. On the other side,